All right, everyone is back. So we can begin discussion of CR 21-03. That was the traffic stop incident and the child seatbelt restraint issue. So anyone want to start off that discussion?
I have a question for Commander Glue. In a traffic stop, this officer was designated to do traffic. This has nothing to do with the fact that I concur with your conclusion, but should he be trained, or is he trained to install those seatbelts or fix those seatbelts? Because my concern was that he let him drive away, even though he was right near his home, but he let him drive away with unrestrained children. So is there, I don't think it's a training issue for that particular officer. That's the way I would have wanted to be treated, but is that a piece that is missing, that those kids drove away unrestrained?
So I think that what we used to have somebody that we could refer to here that was certified in child restraint safety seat installation. They are no longer with the department. So we don't have that resource. I think that's why the officer was relying heavily on making phone calls to assist. I think a little bit to your point of, should there have been more proactive stuff on the officer's part to try to secure? I think it's more of like eyes, give those resources. The parents there to, has those resources, has a smartphone, can look at those resources. So we used to have that resource. We don't have it right now. And I think that's why the officer is spending so much time trying to find something for that driver.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
No problem.
Commander, this is Cindy. I agree with her. So rather than let the parent move on with the kids, his children, shouldn't he have asked is it possible to ask the parent to secure the kids before he pulls off? Says he should know how to do that.
Again, we can't necessarily stop somebody from continuing to move, even when in a violation like that. It's not an arrestable offense. Can't impound the car, so on and so forth. So we have some limitations there. Again, I would go back to my previous comments of that's why the officer is trying to give the individual the resources to secure those seats. Even looking toward a jurisdiction, a neighboring jurisdiction that may have somebody to go to that would be certified and provide that service. So we do have limitations on how much we can stop somebody from driving and continuing on, even if they're committing or continue after they've been cited, they're continuing to commit a violation.
Okay, thank you.
Based on what we saw and the complaint, I am satisfied with the investigation.
I concur with Commissioner Shambi. I think he did an outstanding job, and that it was fair, and your investigation was fair and complete.
I agree as well that that everything that was written up in the CR and the investigation of that was complete and fair. Does anyone else have any other comment on CR 21-03?
Chair, could we have a motion to find the investigation to be complete, thorough, objective, and fair?
Yes. Can someone bring a motion on CR 21-03?
I motion that CR 21-03 be moved towards HRC.
Second.
Second.
And we'll have a vote on that.
Yes. Commissioner Richmond,
Approve.
Chair Strickland,
Approved.
Commissioner Reed,
Approved.
Commissioner Fishman,
Approved.
Commissioner Shambi.
Approve.
All right, so with that, CR 21-03 has been approved to move on to the Human Services Committee. So the next up is, can I get a motion to discuss, oh no, that's already been moved in. Can we move on to discussing DI 21-02? Does anyone have any questions for Commander Glue on that before we dive into discussion?
I would just make one point before we go into discussion. There is a use of force investigation done. The officer's actions with regard to force was found to be within policy.
I guess my question on this one is, so in terms of the video footage and the allegations that the officer struck the juvenile, I did not see that play out in the video. But my question was about the Patrol Sergeant one's questioning of the juvenile without the parent present, and sort of what is the, I know there was a gray area in terms of the policy, but what is the policy on that? She was saying it wasn't necessary for a use of force investigation. So she couldn't have questioned her on the actual incident without a parent present, but she was saying that it was a gray area on the use of force questioning.
So I think that the difference here is going to lie, like, so when if a detective or somebody, law enforcement official, is going to interview that juvenile about the elements of a crime for which they may be charged, basically an interrogation, they have to have a parent present, especially, they're asking for a parent. The juvenile detective, the juvenile detective is aware of that. The parents are downstairs beforehand saying you need to have a parent present. So if there was going to be, and what is clear is if there's going to be an interrogation of juvenile and they're all saying, got to have a juvenile, we got to have a parent present, then they have to have a parent present. Where the gray area comes in and there's some decision making is, now a use of force investigation is an internal investigation. It's not, it's an investigation of the officer's actions. It's not an investigation of necessarily the juvenile. The juvenile's actions or the elements of the crime. It's not an interrogation. Not in this instance, but sometimes in other instances we do investigate use of force. Sometimes there's some overlap and some Miranda required, but that's not the case here. So that's where the gray area is a lot of people saying you got to have juvenile there. We want to be there. The juvenile saying I want a mom here. They were saying beforehand they got to have a parent there. And the sergeant's position is because it's not a custodial interrogation, it's a internal investigation of the officer's actions, therefore not entitled to a parent present.
I understand what you're saying when it comes to the gray area, but it's still, because this was based on something that could be a criminal act. Again, anything that child can say, even when it comes within the realms of an internal investigation of use of force, can also be used against them in any sort of subsequent criminal case that could be brought against them as well. And if the parent is there already, I don't understand the problem in the parent being allowed to come up and sit with their child before the officer asks. And I heard the girl even ask, and the officer just kind of refused to say that your parent doesn't, I don't have to have your parent here for this type of questioning.
Yes, I mean,
and it wasn't just the girl, the juvenile that asked. The juvenile detective also made a comment that parent should be present, and the sergeant ignored that as well.
so at the time that this came up, as myself and Sergeant Warnick here, when we reviewed this, the lack of a parent present was not part of the initial complaint. That was something that we picked up on and we felt that needed to be investigated and reviewed further. And that is, I think, everybody here has kind of touched on what the review is, where you have several people saying you need to have somebody there. Does somebody like that needs to be investigated, needs to be addressed, which is why it was included as part of this investigation, even though it wasn't part of the initial complaint. And, you know, that's why we're talking about, that's why it's characterized as, you know, whether gray area is appropriate or something that's sitting with outside of policy, but that's why it's included. That's why it was investigated and that's what's being reviewed.
So in my review, I mean, I did take a look at that Lexipol policy since you were so kind to give us those enormous documents in the beginning of this, but it is kind of gray. But I think the real document that we should all be paying attention to is the November 16th, 2021 document from the deputy chief, where the deputy chief talks about this particular sergeant struggling with independent thinking and decision-making. This is just indicative of a pattern. There's this particular sergeant has 2 written reprimands and there's a DI pending. Is that correct, Commander? That's still pending?
I would have to look. I would have
Okay,
to,
so
yeah.
I mean, I think that the deputy chief recommended, you know, that or concurred with the administrative decision of OPS. So I think that's what we're looking at. None of us like the behavior of the sergeant, regardless of that gray area, but that was addressed by the deputy chief. So I mean, I concur with your investigation. It was extremely thorough. You went above and beyond because you brought in the actions of that sergeant when that wasn't part of the original allegation. So I feel that the allegations against the officers are fair and complete. And then I commend your department for going above and beyond to investigate the actions of that sergeant. And I concur with the recommendations by the deputy chief and by OPS.
So, Commander, just two points I just want to bring out. I think leading to what was just being discussed, it also seems just the ability to read a room, right? From the video, I think if the parent would have been included, it probably would have diffused the situation quite a bit. My other question, just on a procedural, is that pretty standard operating procedure to question someone in that would look like a holding room, as opposed to in an open office space? It just seems like that added another layer of anxiety, intimidation. I was just wondering if that's a normal process.
So if this was involving an adult, they would have been in an enclosed interview room. This is a juvenile, how juveniles secured custody versus unsecured custody. There's a lot that goes into it. So their actions with regards to where the interview was done was pursuant to policy and applicable law. So no issue there.
Got it. Okay, just was good,
No
just curious.
problem. Thank you.
So moving forward, this is Cindy, moving forward, we recognize the fact that when a juvenile is involved, we are trying to decipher the juvenile's point of view. Do we agree that there should be a parent, or we're saying, no, we can sort of try and find out what the juvenile knows or what the juvenile saw happen? Being engaged in a number of these fights over at the high school with the kids, I know it's tough and to try and, especially young ladies, to try and pull them apart. And because you're trying to keep them from hurting themselves. But when it comes down to questioning, I certainly feel that an adult or social worker or someone should be present there, as hopefully a parent in the future.
Yeah, so I think that that's what we're, like, yes, did this rise to the level that there needed to be an advocate there for the juvenile, that being the parent upon request? I definitely will not purport myself to be a juvenile law expert. There is a lot of layers to talking to juveniles and when and ages and automatic, where sometimes you actually have to produce, you don't wait to be requested, you have to have that advocate there depending on age and severity. So
Right.
I think the issue here is even if it wasn't necessarily required by policy, I think what Shana had alluded to is that in the deputy chief's summary that, just in terms of if it was in the discretion of the sergeant, that she didn't make the best decision in denying that right, even if it wasn't necessarily required that a parent be present, that in terms of looking at the entire situation, a better decision probably could have been made to allow that to happen. And so I think that's where the training and discussion with her and any follow-up will come into play. But in terms of the investigation that we were presented with, I do think it was thorough and complete, and sort of went above and beyond in terms of bringing in that extra piece and in determining whether there needs to be any kind of policy adjustment or policy shift.
well, it's better that we catch it and bring it in than you catch it and we didn't detect it.
All right, so can I get a motion or any other discussion on DI 21-02? All right, can I have a motion to move DI 21-02 on to the Human Services Committee?
I make a motion that we move -2102 to the Human Service Commission for review.
In a second.
Second.
Commissioner Richmond,
Approve?
Chair Strickland,
Approved.
Commissioner Reed,
Approve.
Commissioner Fishman. I'm sorry, did Commissioner Fishman?
Approved.
Thank you. Commissioner Shambi,
Approve.
All right, so DI 2102 is being moved on. And we have no additional new business or old business on the agenda. So at this time, unless there are any further questions or comments from anyone, we can adjourn. Oh, go ahead, Shannon.
Quick comment. I think two takeaways that just for Commander Glue and Sergeant Hart is I think that, I think this is already happening, but I think that the committee would like to recommend that Lexapol policy be reviewed and rewritten and ungrade. So it's a little bit more black and white. And so we don't have to see a repeat of an untrained sergeant or a sergeant making a bad choice when there's a choice to make. So cleaning up of the Lexapol policy. And then it would be great if in a city the size of Evanston, I know most of us are parents here, if there was a couple of new officers trained in seatbelt installation and safety. I don't think it would have changed that particular case at all, but that would be something that maybe we can do a bake sale and get you some money to train an officer. But that's something that the city definitely needs. So if that could be a recommendation from this committee with the approval of my fellow commissioners, I think that's something we'd like to recommend to the chief.
Okay, made notes.
I approve.
I also approve.
As well. All right, and I think with that, we can adjourn for the evening.
I'm sorry, I was waiting for the fire truck to go by.
I'm so sorry, David.
But if you really want to make that a recommendation, can I ask that you email me what you would like the recommendation to be? And then we can include it on the agenda at the next meeting, and you can take an official vote to make a recommendation to the police. Because right now, Commander Glue is accepting it, but because it wasn't on the agenda, it can't be an official action of the committee, as far as I understand, anyway. So if you really want to, I would say the best way to do this is email what your recommendation would be. I can include that as a new business topic or old business topic in the next agenda, and then we can formally make a motion to make that recommendation.
Nico, would you like me to take care of that, or would you like to do that as our chairperson?
Do it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to try to make everything right and do things proper.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Right.